The myth of Pyramus and Thisbe is a Roman story that served as one source of inspiration for Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and one we can also find in Night Elven history. Pyramus and Thisbe were young lovers who lived in neighbouring houses in the city of Babylon. They fell deeply in love with each other, but were forbidden by their parents to marry due to a rivalry that existed between the families. In secret, they communicated through a crack in the wall that separated their houses. One day, they decided to meet at a nearby mulberry tree and planned to elope together. Thisbe arrived first, but was terrified by a lioness with blood-stained jaws, which had been drinking at a nearby stream. In her haste to escape, Thisbe dropped her cloak at the scene, and the lioness mauled it, ripping it to pieces and staining the shreds with blood. When Pyramus arrived at the meeting spot and saw what was left of Thisbe's blood-stained cloak, he assumed that she had been killed by the lioness. Overwhelmed with grief and despair, Pyramus took his own life with his sword. Shortly after, Thisbe returned to the mulberry tree and discovered Pyramus's lifeless body. She was devastated and, in her grief, also took her own life. The mulberry tree, which had been white, was said to have turned red from the blood of the lovers, symbolizing the enduring love between them. The story of Pyramus and Thisbe is a classic tale of forbidden love, miscommunication, and tragic consequences. In Ovid's telling, Pyramus and Thisbe are transformed into a river and a spring. Unearthing certain Night Elven artifacts will tell you a story about two night elves, Pyramond and Theleste. Piecing all them together will trigger the achievement A Tragedy in 3 acts. The artifacts and their descriptions are as follows. Hairpin of silver and malachite. Engraved beneath the setting for the precious stone are the words, "To Theleste on her 24th birth year." This artifact was a gift presented to a young night elf woman to commemorate her birthday. While 24 is very young for a night elf, the age of maturity of an elf is similar to a human's. When Theleste received this gift, she was of an age to marry. It may be suggested that Theleste, receiving this gift, is from a highborne family. Cloak clasp with antlers. This clasp is fashioned of a lacquered wood carved to resemble stag antlers. On the reverse is engraved the name Pyramond in Darnacian. This item belonged to a young night elf male. The stag antlers are a masculine symbol. The clasp would likely have been used to hold together a cloak, a reference perhaps to the cloak which Thisbe dropped in the Roman tale. Delicate music box. This box is of sandalwood with a tiny clockwork elf and night sabre within. Although the winding mechanism is no longer functional, you can imagine the two would dance together while the music played. Engraved on the bottom, "To my dearest Theleste." Although the identity of the bestower of this gift is not revealed, this music box is the first suggestion that Theleste had a lover. Silver scroll case. While this elven scroll case is graced with much ornamentation, it is the message inside, written in Darnacian, that is of the most interest. Pyramond, under no circumstances are you to spend time with that tavern wench. Your mother and I forbid it. She is far beneath your station. The silver scroll is evidence that Pyramond was also a young night elf and had a lover of his own, one he was forbidden by his parents to see. The implication here is that Pyramond is from a family with high social status, perhaps a highborn one, and that whoever that tavern wench is, she wasn't of the same stock. An old tale of difficult love. To be different in blood, too high to be enthralled too low. Chest of tiny glass animals. Remarkably, you managed to find an entire menagerie of these elven glass animals in their original storage container. While some of the animals have understandably suffered cracks and chips, it is clear that the head of the stag has been deliberately severed. The initial T is carved at the bottom of the chest. It can be assumed that T refers to our Theleste, while the stag is symbolic of Pyramond. This links our two lovers together. The Glass Menagerie may be a reference to another play, The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, first performed in 1944. In Williams's play, a young girl called Laura, who cherishes a set of glass animals, reconnects with an old crush from her school days. One night, Laura and the man, known as Jim, share a dance. As they dance, Jim accidentally knocks one of the animals onto the floor, a unicorn that symbolizes Laura herself, breaking off its horn. Though the two share a tender moment and a kiss, Jim reveals that he is engaged to another woman. It is unclear whether this is the truth or a lie he tells Laura to let her down gently. Before he leaves, Laura asks him to take the unicorn horn as a parting gift. The chest of tiny glass animals may suggest that there was a disturbance in Pyramond and Theleste's relationship. Perhaps Pyramond obeyed his parents and broke off the romance with Theleste. Perhaps his parents arranged for him a marriage to a more suitable woman, or this was an excuse he told Theleste. Perhaps the head of the stag was severed by Theleste in grief, or given to Pyramond as a symbolic parting gift. This leads us to the final artifact, the cracked crystal vial. A note in rich vellum is tied to the bottle. Dearest P, now that I know we can never be together, it is my wish to drink this draught of spider venom. If this note finds you, my hope is that you might do the same. May a loon watch over our souls. The story ends here. We can assume that this is a note written by Theleste to Pyramond, accepting that, for whatever reason, the two can never be together. She drinks poison, reminiscent of Romeo's decision to drink poison after the apparent death of his lover Juliet. That Theleste would resolve to take her own life suggests that she may have been abandoned by Pyramond, but her hope that he would follow her into death suggests that she believed him to be suffering the same as she. So ends the tale of Pyramond and Theleste, two young lovers who are forbidden to be together, whose story ends in tragedy. An ancient tale retold and adapted in various forms of literature and art over the centuries, including in modern video games. Nothing more is heard about Pyramond and Theleste, and assumedly this romance took place many years ago. Over 10,000 years later, during the raid encounter with Queen Ashara in the Eternal Palace of Nazjatar, the Queen does something disturbing.
The ritual has begun. We all have our parts to play. I call the cursed lovers to enter the stage.
The Queen summons two servants, Athanel, a former handmaiden of Ashara, and Cyranus, a disgraced captain of the guard. Two Naga who are magically enchanted to suffer intense torment when looking upon one another, and intense torment when they are parted.
Their eyes long for one another, yet their gaze incurs calamity.
Ashara uses them as ritual sacrifices, and they are destroyed by adventurers during the encounter.
I draw this ward with devoted blood!
Queen Ashara, a notable fan of theatre, may have enchanted two of her Naga in order to use them as actors to perform a sick and intense recreation of this classic and eternal story. Or perhaps she picked two Naga with a genuine lover's bond. This would provide the most potent blood for her ritual, true devoted blood. Two that share a love that was so passionate they would rather die than be apart from one another. Two lovers who, despite this intense yearning for each other, were somehow forbidden from being together. Two tortured lovers that share real memories and once had the hope of a life together. A life together that was taken from them once they transformed into cold-blooded, dark-hearted, aquatic monstrosities. I doubt the Naga retain the capacity to love, apart from, maybe, these two.